Hello, and welcome to the Three Questions podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm your host, Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. If you or someone close to you has considered purchasing real estate in South Florida, stay tuned. Our topic for this episode, the three questions to ask about the new real estate developments in South Florida. Thank you for taking time to check us out. And if you enjoyed this episode of the Three Questions podcast, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. On today's episode of the Three Questions podcast, we're going to explore the dynamic world of new real estate developments in South Florida. Our topic, the three questions to ask about the new real estate developments in South Florida. And our special guest is Esha Desai. Esha is a seasoned Miami Beach-based licensed real estate advisor with Compass, and she has extensive knowledge of the greater Miami area. Esha is known for her targeted marketing approach, and she blends online and offline strategies with a keen understanding of each property's unique target buyer profile to seamlessly connect buyers and sellers. Esha, great to see you again. Thank you for making time to join us here on the Three Questions podcast.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to see you. I'm going to say something. We've had some great conversations, and what a story. A very interesting path to becoming involved in the South Florida real estate market. I am very sure that our audience would be interested to learn more about you and your journey. I think it's an incredible story. So why don't you just share a little bit about how you ended up in South Florida?
Thanks, Wayne. So I would say in short, I haven't taken a straight path to my life. That's led to some very interesting opportunities and interesting experiences, as well as a lot of diverse people that I've met around the world. But to keep it brief, I am Indian by origin. I was born in India. I grew up in New York. I went to Vassar for undergrad. I worked in the city for GE, G Capital back in the day. And then pursuing a passion for Indian classical dance, I took a transfer with GE to San Francisco. Stayed there for about 6 years, got my master's in industrial organizational psychology, and joined Accenture as an organizational development consultant. And through that, I've traveled, within the US as well as internationally. I actually relocated back to India, lived and worked in India for about 8 years, and was at the end of my career there, the regional lead of a group within Accenture called Accenture Development Partnerships. So very, very cool experiences, great work, great people that I've met. But long and short of it is life happens, and I decided to come back to the US, continue to be with Accenture for a little bit of time, but then transitioned out of consulting completely, just wanting a life change. Mostly I got tired of cold weather and also the rigor of the consulting lifestyle. Not to say my current life doesn't have as much rigor, for sure, I will say. So what I decided, just because I could, and partly out of whimsy, is to move to Miami Beach, which is where I live now. So I've been here for the last 5 years. I also, had an interest in real estate. I was an investor in some properties, and so I decided to build off of that interest and sort of, provide the sort of insight and support that I did wish that sometimes I had when I was making my decisions. But at that time, I will say I didn't know that the Miami market would blow up, because this was pre-COVID. And I have to say, I've kind of ended up in a great place, great market, lots of sort of new and interesting things happening. And the funny thing is, Miami is trying to be and has desire to be like the next New York, right? Like the next international hub of the world. And so I feel like I've landed in sort of serendipitously landed in a place where everything is happening and kind of all
It
my
is on
experiences coming together.
fire. I will
Yeah,
tell you right now, every time I go to Miami, and I used to go there for at least a week at a time, or I've been there a couple weeks at a time. It
right.
just and I get on a plane and I head back to LA, and I'm like, the place is on fire. And I don't mean it. in the wrong way, but
Yeah, not literally, but
yeah, it is unbelievable.
it is.
It is. I love the ambitious nature of the local, the colleagues, the friends I've made. I just love the fact that everybody is. You can just feel everybody is dialed into exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You don't have to go looking for it very hard.
No. And it sort of offers everything or something for everybody is what I
And
was.
and what I really appreciate, quite frankly, is the community spirit, at
Yeah.
least in the professional world,
Yeah.
amongst everybody. Everybody is really there supporting each other. And
Mhm.
yeah, I must admit, I'm pretty blown away.
Yeah.
Uh, before we get to our questions, there's something I did some, what do you call it? Snooping around.
I did.
Uh, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, Esha is short for effective Sherpa and honest advocate. You got to elaborate on how you come up.
Well,
Where did this
so
come
I
from?
was trying to be cutesy and creative. I wanted to make an acronym out of my name, but the words do mean something to me. So my aim is always to be a effective Sherpa or guide for my clients, right? It's to kind of shorten that and take out all the stress, take out all the confusion about a real estate transaction, whether you're selling, buying, investing. And so my aim is to be an effective guide, which I think I do try to achieve that objective and succeed many times. And then the other part of it is to be honest um, with my clients. Again, like I think most of my clients, or I would say all of my clients, become my friends. After, they may start out not knowing anything about me, but the journey is such that, you find out everything about each other and you are friends. And so my aim is to be that honest sort of guide for my clients. And so that's why that was my cute, creative way to talk about who I am.
Well, a mission accomplished because I think I consider you a friend as well. Um, so I think when you mentioned Sherpa, the first thing I think of is the most famous Sherpa, which is Tenzing Norgay. And I always laugh about how, Sir Edmund Hillary makes it up to the top of Mount Everest.
My
And it's
neighbors.
like Tenzing Norgay is like up and down so many. Like, how come Sir Edmund Hillary gets all the love when Tenzing Norgay did that trip over and
Like
over
a
and
thousand
over
times.
again? Like, what the heck is that?
But that's how it is, right? A coach doesn't get as much fame as a
Fair,
player,
fair,
and
fair.
I'm okay being in the background and seeing my clients succeed.
But there is some irony to that because we're not just talking about coaching. We're talking about somebody who's been up and down Mount Everest. Always thought that was amusing. Like, wait a minute, how come the guy who went up 10 times isn't getting a
Or the guys even now who carry like thousands of loads of or pounds of load on their back, and they're helping, all the people who want to go
yeah,
up
yeah,
for the
exactly.
first
Who's
time.
getting all the grease here? You know, again, we were talking about this earlier, but over the last 5 years or so, now you have witnessed this remarkable, and I'll use the word remarkable without hyperbole,
Yep.
remarkable surge in demand for real estate in South Florida. And I think, you know, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, I'm learning these counties, Isha, as
Yep.
I go. I must admit, I'm still not 100% certain where all the borders begin and end. But these areas have seen an incredible influx of residents. It's contributed to a heightened real estate demand. And along with that, there's been a significant increase in new real estate developments. Now, obviously, this is very exciting for you, needless to say, and for
Yep.
your fellow real estate professionals. And so maybe you can just sort of, for the folks that maybe don't live in South Florida, just give them an idea of what has taken place over the last 5 years.
Yeah, so first I'll talk about the geography. So South Florida is like a loose term that refers to the three counties, as you mentioned, right?
Right.
It's Miami-Dade County, Broward, and West Palm. And you can compare that to, if you're familiar with the New York area, it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So that's like the largest metropolitan area. This is the second largest metropolitan area. And it really is sort of a slim territory that runs up the border
Yes.
on the west east side of Florida, because if you start to go too far west, you're going to run into the Everglades, and then there is obviously the west coast of Florida. So this is the east coast of Florida. kind of the sliver that's on the
Yeah,
side
I call it the
of the Everglades.
Miami. For me, for my simple thinking, I think of it the Miami Fort Lauderdale corridor. But yeah, you're
That's right. But now, Fort Lauderdale then doesn't account for West Palm, and actually,
exactly.
West Palm and or like Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade County get a lot more. Has actually, what I would say, has had a greater wealth migration than Broward. Broward's kind of like the cousin in the middle. And what's really happened in the last 5 years, there's various factors, but I don't have the 24 data, but in 23, um, Florida was the had $39 million of wealth into the state from outside. So that's significant in itself. And Miami-Dade and West Palm had 7 billion, sorry, I said million, but it's billion, 7 billion of wealth migrating in 2023. 24 was probably equal. I don't have that data, but my point being, and you're seeing that consistently, which is there's a significant wealth migration into these two counties, and then as a result in Broward as well, and in certain areas in Broward more than other places. Um, and the reality is that we really do have people from within the US that didn't used to move to Florida, moving to Florida. So that's and it is a different demographic. The other thing, as many people might have heard, but Citadel, a large hedge fund, is setting up or building a new tower. They've moved offices here already, and this tower is going to house their corporate offices, but they're also attracting a lot of tech companies. Apple has committed to having a campus here, a headquarters in Coral Gable. Amazon has, I mean, Google is going to have offices here. So like the companies that you never heard about before in Florida are moving to Florida. And
And
Florida,
I'll add one other thing. We're in the midst of this uncertainty period, which I think we're looking at 2025 in
right,
general.
right,
And where I'm going with this, and probably you never maybe thought of this, or maybe you have, but with the change in public policy in the United States with regards to tariffs,
yeah,
I believe is going to also drive more businesses into the U.S. And I think myself from Canada, being a Canadian, I kind of think north south. And while I know there's a fair amount of angst right now and some hurt feelings for sure, some of the comments that have come from our current president towards Canada, no, not too many people up there are very happy with it.
right.
But that said, if you're a Canadian entrepreneur and you want to get exposure to probably the biggest consumer base in the world, then and you don't want to have be subject to any kind of tariff
Yeah,
on top of your product, then you're probably going to want to think about setting up operations south of the Canadian border. So I can't
exactly.
think of a better place. Maybe your thoughts maybe are the same too, than maybe looking at your part of the world. And I'm thinking not just for residential, but also
No,
commercial.
absolutely. No, and the two are related, right? It is that the opportunity is both in terms of business, right? We have like Florida is great, or at least South Florida is great from a logistics perspective, transportation. The state has
Mhm.
committed to investing in a second space station in Homestead, which is different than where we have one already in Titusville. So there are significant investments being made by by the government to attract all sorts of
Yeah, and we're
companies
not we're
across
not
every.
in any kind of end like
No, it's just
we're
the
not at the
beginning.
end here. We're like
We're
beginning.
in the beginning stages. Like I know it seems like, oh, 5 years is a long time, but it really isn't when you compare to like if you want to just, reflect back to historically how New York grew. And if Miami is trying to be New York, we're like at the beginning of that journey. And if you look at like the next 10, 20 years, this is where it's going to be. I don't have enough of a vision to say what will happen in 30, 50 years, but I can even talk about what this area is trying to do in terms of sustainability. Because you hear a lot of things about, oh, everything's going to be underwater and things like that. Like
We shall
the
see.
right, we shall see. But what I will say is that's true across the world. Places like New York and places in like Cape Cod, Vancouver, all these places have the same threats of water levels rising. It's not a just a Miami problem or a Florida problem. And the truth is we have to do something about it, and each city or each urban area is dealing with it in its own way and has a plan towards it. And I can say that there's a plan here
I will
that,
say this, never second guess American ingenuity is all I'll say.
yeah, and also the world ingenuity. I think everybody
Fair
knows
enough.
this is a problem, right? So I mean, but I can tell you that, you know, in the time that we have, whatever that time may be, but I do think like this area for what it offers, both first in terms of commercial opportunities, right? In terms of business opportunities, that's really what driving the growth. It's not, it used to be that Miami, South Florida was like a vacation place, retirees, second home. So you come and hang out for 6 months and then you disappear. More and more, this is an all year-round place. And over time, in the next couple of years, after some of these big towers are built, especially in terms of office towers, then you're going to see a whole different set of demographic coming in. And when we were talking about new developments, that all of that is being built for that market. And as a
Interesting.
result, it's to serve a demand that
We're
that
at the
is
very
coming.
front end of what's going to be a
Correct.
significant new wave.
Correct.
So the goal here today
Yeah.
for you and I is, to educate and inform our audience here. So let's
Correct.
get right to our three questions. Either the three questions
Good.
to ask about the new real estate developments in South Florida. Let's get right to the questions. Question number one
Yeah.
for Isha. Beyond location and price, how do I choose the right property? This seems like real estate purchasing 101, but I'm sure you're going to elaborate here for us.
Yeah, no, because I think what I'll say is, there's a lot of choices available. And personally, I can probably name like 50 projects within South Florida that are coming up. And I know that there are more. I can name 50. So that's to say there are a lot of projects coming.
And this is
Every
in
project,
the South Florida in the three
yeah,
county.
in between West Palm and Miami-Dade, right? Like in the three-county area. And
Okay.
mostly along the water or close to the water. We do have single-family developments further west as well, because again, there's a market, people do like single-family homes, but there is a greater sort of greater numbers of condos or condo buildings or luxury projects of that level along the water because we have beautiful views to offer people, and that you can only get if you go higher or offer it to many more people if you go higher.
Agreed,
Um,
indeed.
so that's really the reality of the landscape here, and that's why we have all the condo buildings along the water. We do have single family homes, but those are at a different level. Those that are on the water are at a different level. But so the first thing I would say is that there's a lot of options. So once you've even decided, oh, I want to be in Brickell or downtown or Miami Beach or even West Palm or Pompano or wherever you've decided that's kind of your place, and you have a approximate budget. The next thing to start to think about is really the lifestyle, the amenities and the lifestyles that you want from this home that you are electing to acquire. And when I say that, there's really actually tremendous, sort of options. Now, there are this category of super luxury condo buildings that offer literally everything and anything. But if you don't want all of that, then you shouldn't, that's how you start to select. There are also focus areas in terms of like, there's demographic differences and whatever else. So you should really start to think about what is a lifestyle or what is it that you want from this home. And related to that is what's your objective? Are you acquiring for investment purposes? Are you acquiring so that you can use it for 6 months? Because then it starts to be important to look at what are the rental policies and what that dynamic looks like. So I'm going to just name three things. I mean, there are many factors that you should consider, but the three things would be amenities or the lifestyle that the project will offer you. The second would be, what is it that you want to get out of it? And the third really is the development team. So you want to look at the developer, the designer, how are they delivering the units? It used to be at one point that, all new development projects just provided you the box and then you had to do all the interior work, right? Like the walls and the furnishings and things like that. Now there are options available where units are provided, finished with without furniture, but with like lighting and
Is that customized? Is that being done on
they,
spec or
yeah,
is
they
it,
generally have options. So they might have 3, 5 options, and then if you want to change things, there's possibility to change certain things within a range of what is available. But that would all be discussed during the acquisition process.
so today we're joined by Esha Desai. She is a South Miami, I should say Miami Beach based Florida, South Florida real estate specialist and incredible resource for information for us today. Really happy she's here. We're addressing the three questions to ask about, the new real estate developments in South Florida. I do have a follow-up question, and it kind of circles back to the way you've kind of, I will say, sort of marketed yourself. How can understanding a property's target buyer profile, which is something obviously you specialize in, help someone make a more informed decision?
Yeah, and I think, for me, it's the consultant in me. So the key really
Which goes
is
back to years and years of experience
years and
on
years
this.
of being a consultant. So all I know is how to ask good questions to really, really deeply understand what it is that you want, right? And but that's what defines for me. Let's say you were trying to or interested in a new project. I would literally ask you the questions sometimes that you might not have even thought
Right.
about lifestyle, about like what is it that you want to do? What's your plan? Would you plan to hold it for a long or short time? Whatever, there are all these elements that are involved in acquiring a new development or even a resale. But the point is, it's that buyer consultation. It's the consultation up front to really say, okay, what is it they want? What is it they want, don't want? And then as a Sherpa, as a guide, my job will be to say, okay, well, these are the 5 or 10 that fit this criteria. Or, these is let's eliminate this because this doesn't give you the lifestyle that you want. So that is the target buyer profile because every project, like we have a project called 11 Residences that's for young people to party in, really. And so all your neighbors are going to be these young people who want to party all the time. If that's not your vibe, or if that's not what you're looking for, and you're looking for a quiet home that provides you all the luxury, but you're downsizing from a large home because now your kids have gone to school, then that's a different project and that's a different requirement. And sometimes it's not clearly evident with all the marketing information that would be available to really see what would be right for you versus someone else who may at face value sound like the same person but have different requirements.
So just one before we move on,
Mhm.
we're talking a lot. We talked about this a bit earlier. Are there any uh trends you're seeing in South Florida, again, like sustainability features or smart home technology
Yeah.
that buyers should be looking for in new developments? Is there any kind of like prep for the future that you're seeing?
Yeah, so what I will say, like in terms of smart homes, I would say most of the new projects, even if they're meant for investment purpose, like daily rentals, have some elements of smart home. Now, it's not the degrees to which how everything is, um, built out, but that's sort of now a given is what I'm going to say. That's part of the new development sort of framework. Like it's sort of a bare minimum almost. What you are seeing is this targeted, so there are these projects that are more focused on wellness. So there's one with a partnership with a company called the Well. They have a wellness and spa that's in New York and a whole brand around it. They do diet, they do exercise, the air is purified, the water that's grown. They set up these plants that are growing in your home to provide you like herbs and things like that. So this very like combining your lifestyle with wellness. So that's a very niche product in terms of somebody who really wants to live that lifestyle.
And whereabouts in South Florida is that one?
So there are two that they've developed. One is in Bay Harbor, which is on the Miami Beach side, and the other is in Coconut Grove, which is south of Brickell. So that's an example. But then there are other projects that are much more about providing a high level of concierge service. So they have Michelin star restaurants in the building that will deliver food to you. So it's literally like having a luxury hotel experience, but in a private residence. So, and there are things in the middle. So That's really kind of the marketplace here. Branding is another big thing, but as a result, what is people are trying to capture, or luxury brands are capturing their markets. So we have people who love the Ritz, and so as a result, there are Ritz properties being built, St. Regis, but also the car companies are partnering with developers. So we have Pagani being built, and about the Aston Martin and Mercedes and things like that. So there's that confluence of like capturing your market, and then kind of the brand or the expectation from the brand. So what you expect from a Four Seasons, that's what you're going to get from a Four Seasons. But also, if that's not your jive, then there are other product available that
Well, I
would.
don't know anybody who wouldn't be excited about a Ritz experience. I think when you mentioned that, the first thing I thought of was a time that my wife and I spent a few days at a resort in Lisbon, Portugal called Penalonga.
Uh-huh.
It's a Ritz-Carlton resort. It was a former monastery that they turned into a Ritz-Carlton resort.
Right.
Man, that was next level. So
It is. But then when you
anything,
think about it as a consumer, there is a difference between Ritz and Four Seasons and St. Regis and Starwood, and even within that subcategory. So that's what the market is trying to serve. Like the developers are partnering with these brands to serve a very particular niche.
well, I'd be all in on the Ritz. I'll put it that way.
I know. Well, I got some great options for you, even in West Palm, if you want to go up there, or certainly in Miami Beach
Oh God.
and Miami.
Yeah. Well, so far we've been, all very on the upside here, but full disclosure, just like when I'm meeting with a client, we just can't talk about all the great things about putting an investment portfolio and all the opportunities, but we can't ignore the risks. So
Right.
question number two is going to focus on that. So Isha,
Okay.
what are some of the risks to consider when purchasing real estate in South Florida?
Yeah, and so
Or
you're absolutely right, right? And you have to understand the risks so you can develop an effective management strategy around it. So one of the things to consider is the developer and the developer team.
Hmm.
So there's the developer and then there's the interior designer, and so there's generally a team that's involved with any project. Many of them have history, right? So you can look at their past projects, you can see what sort of things came up.
Like their
You may
curriculum
not know
vitae, like
about
their
it. I would
CV.
know. Sorry?
It's like their CV.
It's their CV. Yeah. In general, this is what they did. And then this is how they learned from this project and how they, grown as a developer themselves. And so you may not have that information, but someone like me would be able to say, oh, they did these other projects, we can go visit it. So that but the thing to manage is the quality of the development and the quality of the construction. Now, I'll be fair to say nothing will be 100% perfect when it's delivered because,
It
there's always
never
a
is.
timeline crunch and things like that, but it's also their attitude towards what they will do to address whatever issues that come up. So there is some historical evidence that you can look to understand the development team and what they're bringing to the table. The other is how they're managing the project and the completion timeline, and what steps will they take to manage towards that. But this can be something also addressed in how you negotiate the contract, right? Because one is, will they complete? Hopefully, most people will, but generally, what happens is the timeline gets shifted, right? So they may be projected to complete in 18 months, but as you well know, there will be delays. So how are they going to manage that? What are their expectations from the buyer? What are they also doing with the deposits that you may have given, especially if they don't complete, but even if they do complete, how are they being utilized for the construction? These are all questions to be asked during the acquisition, and kind of feel comfortable about it, but or come up with ways to negotiate that into the contract so it protects you. So I would say the main risk to consider is that. Now, the other thing that I know there's a little bit buzz about, oh, is there too much development and is there going to be competition? Is the value going to hold? Is the value too high already at acquisition? These are good questions. In general, there fortunately, or like what I'll say is that there's a little bit of room in negotiation in terms of price when you're acquiring, because new development projects are sold for a projected value. They're and they have a separate standard than the resale or the existing properties that you may buy. So there's some risk to consider, and really there again goes back to why is it that you're acquiring this, and what's your plan on holding it, or do you want to flip it? And there are people who do flip it. And in general, when a new project is announced, they have a lower price. Then over time, the prices increase. So there are investors who buy right at the beginning because they know they're
And
hedging
they sell
against the future.
before the properties even come close to being finished.
Well, they buy it right when it's even announced because what they're trying to capture is that initial pricing because
Right.
they
The
know that even in
arbitrage,
three
they call
months,
it, right?
that's right. It's the futures that you can buy, like say in wine or whatever else. That's kind of how it is.
So you mentioned about overdevelopment a minute ago. Like
Yeah.
that standpoint, what should buyers be watching out for in terms of overdevelopment or even market saturation in certain South Florida markets? Where do you see that being on your radar screen?
Yeah, I think it's one of those like it's a concern, but there's no evidence to support that concern. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a realtor. I will say that these projects that get announced, you know, are being sold and they get sold at like highs. Just to kind of throw out a big, but like a penthouse at Shore Club, which is a project coming up in Miami Beach, sold for 120 million. That was a high for a penthouse sale. Um, the so the only point I'm trying to make is that the product that is being built for a very specific type of client, and there are those buyers. So while people sitting like if you're just reading about it, and obviously media likes to sort of maybe create a little buzz, but even when I see these numbers and I look at the stats of what is being sold, all the projects, like there's a new building called Five Park that came in Miami Beach. It's 80% sold and it was delivered in September 2025. Now it's not, it does still have units available, but 80% is actually reaches the target for the developer when they initially built it. And there's always a little give, and there is an interest in that project, and people will buy and people will trade, and eventually it'll be fully occupied. So the point I'm trying to make is people do feel that maybe too many projects are being built, but more and more are always being announced. It's nonstop. And the other part is that because of the shoreline, we only have so much of it, and actually older buildings are being redeveloped. So, older buildings are being torn down, so the project is
Yes.
being bought out
Well,
by
some of
from the
them, yeah,
owners.
there's a reason for that. Has
And there's a reason for that. So, and the replacement units or project is going to be much different than what the older building and the demographic there was. But
yeah,
that
for
is the
sure.
nature of where we are and what's happening.
Um, okay, Isha, I'm going to go right to our third questions.
Okay. I know I talk a lot, right?
No, you're excellent. Are you kidding? Um, it reminds me of our sitting out on the patio as burning through 3 and 4 coffees as I think we did the last time we met.
Yes, I know it's
Um,
crazy.
okay. Question number 3 here on the Three Questions podcast. Isha
Yeah.
Desai is our guest. She is a Miami Beach located real estate guru. My words. She's with Compass, and she's been a great resource for information today. I'm going to give you one more stab at the 3 questions here. Question number 3: why is buyer representation so important when purchasing property in a new construction project? Why is, like I'll tell you right now, in every line of area expertise, especially in wealth management, you come across do-it-yourselfers, right?
Right.
I
Yep.
bet I know in real estate you do as well. So why are new constructions projects even more risky for a do-it-yourselfer than maybe an existing property that maybe they've been used to making flipping and selling on their own? Why is the new development? Why are new projects? Why is it so important to have a subject matter expert like yourself helping them out?
So, I would say honestly, it's to address some of the things that we already talked about. But when you talk about an existing property, there's so much available for you to look and see and inspect, and you know exactly what you're going to get. And even there's value, I would say personally, that a consultant like myself can help you, advisor can say, okay, and to shorten that timeline. But especially in a new development, as I said, one of the most important things is the development team. And if you just, even if you do all your research, if you meet with them 3 times or 5 times, the development team is there to represent the developer.
Right.
So imagine, buying something that is existing and the seller is selling themselves. So you take the seller's word for everything. You don't do an inspection because you can't at the time of purchase. And you use their contract because that's all that's available. Like in reality, we wouldn't do that, in an existing property. But in a new development, there is a lot more glitz. There's good marketing, fairly they should. And it's easy to go on a website and say, I'm interested, get a tour of the model, have meet with a salesperson. But I would say if you don't know anything about the market, or even if you know a little bit, there's always like rumors and there's like information not available to the public that sometimes people like us do know about because we visit projects, we compare them. I've probably gone to many of the sales gallery and I know what the developer is doing. We also have internal sort of conversations about, oh, this project, that project, what's the buzz? So, this is the information that we can share about the development team and just give you that perspective, especially matching it to what your requirements were. Because I would have done a consultation to say, okay, yeah, this is going to fit and this is a good project. So from that perspective, I think someone like me or an advisor can help add value. The other is that all developers have their own contract that you have to use. But what people may or may not know is that there are things that you can negotiate in that contract, and it's not really just only about price. So price may not have that much bandwidth to negotiate, but there is usually some, but there's other things that you can ask for. And it may be additional sort of parking spaces or something like that. But there are certainly terms within the contract that you can address to protect yourself. So to protect yourself against those risks. And I, for example, have specific lawyers that I work with who are experienced with new development projects. So a regular title company or regular real estate attorney, and I don't want to say regular, they're very competent, but who are not focused on new development projects, again, don't have the expertise to maybe ask for certain things that are there to protect you as a consumer. So I mean, I can go on, but like, it's
That
not as simple
last part you
as,
made was excellent.
yeah.
Yeah, and I must say, we'll have to get together and have lunch with one of your real estate attorneys. I'd love to meet next time I come to.
It would be my pleasure to introduce you. And,
Uh,
like as I said, there are specialists who focus on new developments and there are specialists who focus on resales. And
next time I'm
both
in
have value.
Miami, we're going to have to get together and do lunch for sure.
Done.
Um, I was going to ask you a little bit more about misconceptions, but you pretty much covered it. On on misconceptions. I think the key thing that I learned from talking with you, even just today, was that when you're going into new territory, you want to go and get advice. I'm always a big believer in don't try to do things on your own
Yeah,
to get professional advice. And the message I'm getting loud and clear from you today, Esha, is that you at least have the experience of working that market in South Florida. You have the experience of working on new developments. So if you're coming into that market from outside, take advantage of that expertise, is what I would say. Um,
absolutely.
and I will say that just before we wrap up here. You've been a great guest today. Um,
You're a great host, Wayne.
could you share? I'm thinking about my fellow expat Canadian.
Okay.
Okay. And or even someone who's relocating for another part of the US. It doesn't have to be an expat, but is there for what kind of advice would you give to someone who is making that? What's the one piece of a nugget you would give them if they're looking for that relocation to South Florida?
Honestly, I would say come for a visit, right? And it sounds simple, but like schedule time just to come and understand this landscape because there are many options, right? You could be in Brickell, you could be in downtown, you could be in Fort Lauderdale, you could be further north. And without coming and seeing it for yourself in terms of what place sort of calls to you, it's hard. So I would definitely say come visit. And
Mm,
before that, like I would and people like me, but I'm not trying to market myself only, but I would say realtors are happy to get on, show you the map, give you some target areas based on some of your requirements, even point you to say, okay, go see this place, go see this place, potentially even look at some properties to start to get a feel for it. And even if you want to buy a new development, looking at some existing properties in that area is a good gauge, and then you can tour the sales galleries. So I mean, during COVID, personally, I've also sold without seeing, but those people have had been to Miami at least once. So if you've never been down here, you have to come down. If you've been down here and you're familiar, then there's a lot we can do online, and then, just come for like one visit or not even sometimes to sort
But
of.
the rule, but the main thing is don't buy on based on a virtual conversation. You need to go to Miami and see for your, but
Yeah.
South Florida, I should say, because
Yeah, and it's a nice visit. You can combine it
I think
into
of worst
a
places to go
vacation.
to in my life, that's for certain.
Exactly, exactly. But you got to come see, like come see, come feel it out for yourself, because then you will know what is the right decision for you as well.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I really enjoyed having you on my podcast. I'm so glad we finally made this
Uh,
happen. So for the folks listening in, I'm sure there are people watching, there are people listening. Um, what is the best way for them to reach out to you and get a hold of you?
well, my phone number is actually everywhere, so feel free to call or text. My number is 305-772-0007. I'm
Double
triple
O
O
seven. I
seven.
love that. Very
Not
cool.
double O, I'm triple O. So it's as
Triple
three
O
zero
seven. You're right.
five
Correct.
seven
Pardon
seven
me.
two 0007. And then email is also great. And my name is unique enough that if you want to, put it in Google, you probably should be able to find my information. But my email is also simple. It's esha.d, so esha.d@compass.com.
Perfect.
And if you still can't find me, reach out to Wayne, and he will
I certainly can
guide
hunt you
you to
down
me.
in no time at all. It won't be too long before I'm coming back to Miami, so we'll be definitely getting together
Yeah, let's do it. I
for
look forward to it.
another awesome lunch on some patio somewhere. And looking forward to it, Isha. Thank you so much for joining us today. Love you having
Thank
you
you,
as a
Wayne.
guest. Isha Desai is a seasoned Miami-based beach licensed real estate advisor with Compass. Isha, thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate the opportunity.
I look forward to bringing you the Three Questions podcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. And to receive a notification of when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notification bell. Lastly, to schedule an online consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.